Dahałya is a collection of multimedia works that challenges the way people think about photography and traditional Native American art practices. Intertwining traditional practices and alternative forms of photography, this collection pushes against the compartmentalization of traditional Native American art forms that have been heavily influenced by colonization and capitalism. Art used to be solely about creation, expression, and healing until it was influenced by the demands of commodification. This work focuses on ideas of identity, kinship, and exploitation of Native American communities in art practices. Nihaa explores the dimensionality and sculptural qualities of photography and ways to transform the idea of what a photograph is as a modern art practice in relation to redefining how Native American art is perceived as. I drew inspiration from artists Kimwan Machawis and Hulea Sinigini. Indigenous art is often interpreted by the mainstream art world as a subgenre to be viewed against or in contrast to white artistry, a supremacist process that strips Indigenous artists and their art forms of their individuality inherent to them. As a result, Indigenous artists must often operate not only as artistic creators, but also as narrators who can reshape how their work is understood in the public eye. Machawes and Sinigini interrogate ideas of how Indigenous art is viewed in the art world and subvert white centric interpretations by creating work that is distinctly from their own gaze and for other Indigenous people to experience. These artists challenge colonialism through their work by redirecting viewership via photography, installations, and sculptures of their own experiences and those of their respective communities. Their work explores connections to land, processes of colonization, and community well being. Kumawan Machawes was born in Oxbow, Saskatchewan, Canada in 1963 and was a Cree artist with expertise in various artistic disciplines. Until his death, Machawes served as an associate professor in the art department at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. During his studies at the University of New Mexico, Machawes relied heavily on Polaroid photography as an essential component of his creative process. He amassed a significant personal archive, which he fastidiously organized into boxes according to subject and alphabetically. Machawes used these photographs as references for his paintings, and he incorporated them into his mixed media collages and large scale works on paper as transfers. He would cut and rearrange the images before piecing them back together, adding to the collection as a living and evolving archive. Machawes sought to preserve tactile quality even as he rephotographed the Polaroids and digitally printed them. By using his own Polaroid images, Machawes liberated himself from the dependence on archival photographs. This approach allowed him to avoid the necessity of intervention, scrutiny, and reinterpretation that can often burden the work of contemporary Native photographers who explore archives as sites of power imbalances, domination, and colonial violence. Instead, Machawes relied on his personal source imagery, enabling him to create works that were free from such complications. Polaroids became a sensation because they revolutionized access to photography. Polaroids became a way to document everyday lives and allowed communities that previously didn't have authentic photographic representation to be able to capture images from their own perspective. This impacted the photographic history of Native Americans, allowing Native people the freedom to create authentic images of their communities and families. Most people of Native people taken before Polaroids were created primarily by white men, who are still acknowledged to this day by institutions for this work specifically. Often, these photographs perpetrated stereotypes, and some would even purposely fabricate portraits by dressing Native Americans in pan Indian clothing that was not associated with their tribal identity. My personal archive of Polaroids are collected from family members and some that I've taken myself of my family. These photographs focus on ideas of kinship and authentic representation of my tribe. Scholars Julia Bryan Wilson and Lewis Martin have shaped the interpretation of craft and textile works in the art world that communicate my definition of my work within a fine art practice. Craft has a historical dimension that connects the past and the future. It draws from traditional techniques, materials, and cultural heritage while also embracing innovation, experimentation, and contemporary influences. Craftsmanship is often passed down through generations, preserving and evolving traditional practices, while also adapting to changing times and future possibilities. Craft is not a singular, fixed concept. It is complex and multifaceted, with different meanings and interpretations across history, class, gender, and institutions. Craft can be deeply influenced by social, cultural, and economic contexts, and its meaning and significance may vary depending on these factors. Craft is a contemporary phenomenon that serves as a pivot between art and commerce, work and leisure, in the past and future. Textiles can be a powerful tool for bringing people together, fostering collaboration, and creating shared experiences. Through collective engagement with textiles, communities can create meaning, telling their stories and collectively shaping new social and cultural narratives. Textiles possess a unique language that enables connection, communication, and expression. They can serve as metaphors for the human condition, provide a canvas for experimentation and resistance, and foster community building and collective action. Textiles have the potential to challenge and transform our understanding of art, society, and culture, making them a rich and dynamic medium for artistic exploration and social engagement. Textiles, with their inherent quality of texture, pattern, and color, can carry deep symbolism and meaning. They can convey stories, memories, and lived experiences, elevating the personal and mundane aspects of life to a higher artistic plane. Hulea Sinigini is a photographer, museum director, curator, and professor. She uses the fusion of photography and contemporary digital art to challenge or change Native stereotypes and defy political concepts of Indigenous people. Through her work, Sinigini pioneered expanding the creativity of Natives to fully express their ideas and thoughts in open and safe creative spaces. Hallucinogeny uses photography as a tool for presenting an Indigenous perspective on American culture to an Indigenous audience. Synogeny is an important member of the movement to create photography from an Indigenous lens. Her work highlights the preservation of Native American culture and representations of contemporary Native American life. Synogeny acknowledges the loss of Indigenous identity and history due to colonization and the lack of photographs taken from a non white and non colonial gaze. In Synogony's image, this is not a commercial. This is my homeland. She is reclaiming the identity of Monument Valley, a well known American southwestern landscape that has been used in many films that usually portray Native Americans using red face on white actors. Monument Valley is located on the Navajo Reservation adjacent to the community of Kayenta, Arizona, one of the largest communities on the reservation. This landscape has been used in iconic films like Forrest Gump and several John Wayne films, notably Stagecoach, as well as several tobacco commercials. The commodification of Monument Valley as a landmark is a form of modern colonization. Synogony's statement, "This is not a commercial, this is my homeland," is a reclamation of visual history of Monument Valley. This image acknowledges that white people, specifically white Americans, are the ones who are making profit out of commodification of indigenous land. Synogeny examines the complex relationship between identity and space that capitalism and colonialism obscures. Americans feel a sense of patriotism that is rooted in stolen imagery. The idea of an American West is the culture of indigenous communities from the Southwest reimagined for a white audience, erasing Native people from the image but keeping their cultural and visual identity to be superimposed upon. Synogeny states the over romanticizing and simplification of Native existence have been and continue to be two of the greatest assaults on Native existence. In my own practice as an Indigenous artist who firmly grounds my creative work in my own and my community's lived experiences, I have often felt pressure to explain my work to outsiders. I have been made to feel as if my art is not important unless everyone can understand and relate to it, despite the fact that my art is created from a very specific lens, an Indigenous lens. The value of my work has even been questioned because I refuse to disentangle myself from, parcel out as mainstream lessons, or over explain altogether my indigeneity. In my perspective, creating Indigenous art that is both by and for my community not only creates spaces of belonging for myself and other Indigenous creatives, but also helps radically shift the art world away from its man made, white centric core. Ultimately, these artists employ their creations to liberate themselves and their communities from the stereotypes that have been forced on them, thus regaining their agency within the art world. Nizho nihaa dahałya means they are taking good care of us. In this phrase, they specifically refers to our elders. This body of work is dedicated to Machawas and Sinigini, who are elders to me, paving the way for the work I will continue to bring to the world. It is also dedicated to my kin, Shike, my Shamasane, my grandmother, my mother, and the matriarchs before me. Their knowledge of weaving, craft, and art is vast and beautiful, and my life's work will be to continue their legacy as cultural artists. Nijonago Neha Adalya. They are taking good care of us.